Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tapestry. Let's worship. God of Abraham, you're the God of covenant, faithful promises. Time and time again, you have proven you'll do just what you said. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. Rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. God, from age to age, though the earth may pass away, your word remains the same. Your history can prove there's nothing you can't do. You're faithful and true. Though the storms may come and the winds may blow, I'll remain steadfast and let my heart learn when you speak a word, it will come to pass. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I'll praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my faith in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. I put my trust in Jesus, my anchor to the ground, my hope and firm foundation. He'll never let me down. Great is your faithfulness to me. Great is your faithfulness to me. From the rising sun to the setting same, I will praise your name. Great is your faithfulness to me. bring light to darkness. You give hope. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Touching every heart, I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. Worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 God, thank you. So that you are constant. You are never changing and steady. And at the same time, you are big and powerful and everything we need. But you are also, and we see it in Jesus, you are humble and comfort and close. Thank you that all of that is true, and that you fight for us and you comfort us and you're our defender all at the same time. God, we trust you and we come near to you today. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning. It's so good to see you all this morning. I have a few announcements and a lot of calendar events coming up. So I wanted to get some things out. So thanks for everyone who came out to the Fall Festival. I think we successfully sugared up a lot of children and sent them home with their parents. So here's the calendar dates. I'm going to throw a bunch out. If you don't catch them, see me afterwards. I'll fill you in. The first thing is tomorrow, our small group continues at 6 o'clock at the home of Sally and Nelson Shake. If you need their address, let me know or see Andy or any of us, we can get you there, or Sally and Nelson themselves. They sang this morning. And then let's see. So the Old Savannah City Mission is November the 11th. We'll serve right at noon. There will be no Tapestry on Sunday, November the 19th. We're going to close down since that's the start of Thanksgiving break for the kids. We imagine a number of people will be leaving town. Then we're going to do the annual Christmas parade. That's December the 9th. All of these will have more details as we get closer. I'm just filling up your calendar now before all the other things because, Christmas is 57 days away. And that's what Andy says every time I do the announcement. You guys, it's like my thing. I've been counting down since 364. So here we are. And then just to remind, we will be adopting a couple of families this year for Christmas. So that information I try to get out before everyone starts their Christmas shopping in November. Because, it's Christmas, it's my thing. So, and then, let's see. The Tapestry Christmas party will be Sunday, December the 10th. We'll have more information about that. But the white elephant gift thing, you can start planning now. And then, let's see. Oh, this is very exciting. Christmas Eve falls on a Sunday. So we'll have normal service on Christmas Eve. We haven't had a Christmas Eve service in a little while. So that's very exciting. Let's see. If you like us, invite people, give in the offering. I think that's all of mine. Thanks.
The longest 1 minute of your life. Lean into the discomfort, because that is what that was going. So welcome to the busy time of year. The calendar says that it's jacket time, even if the weather forecast doesn't. I don't care that it's 80 degrees out today. I'm wearing a jacket. It's not even a particularly great jacket, but I'm wearing the jacket. Yeah, it's interesting as I sit and just kind of observe some things going on. Like, for example, it is the professors in the room who have to keep the attention of classes on a regular basis, who are the ones we hear jibber-jabbering through the whole... Bam, called out. Roasted. No. There we go. All right. Let's get this thing on track. I don't know when we started. Maybe some of you could answer this question. I don't know when exactly we start lying to ourselves. I'm guessing if we go back and really figure it out, it's going to be a lot earlier than we imagine. Conversely, I don't know when we stop lying to ourselves. Perhaps maybe the answer to that question is when we're not breathing anymore. Yeah, as long as we're breathing, we're lying to ourselves. But we get pretty good at catching other people when they're lying to us. Like, we can pick it up, we can kind of tell things are off. But we aren't so good at catching ourselves lying to ourselves, right? Now, lying to others, is understandable. Not excusable, but understandable. Why you want to, make other people think different things about yourself or, think certain things are or aren't true. It's understandable. But lying to ourselves is kind of confusing. And we all do it. And if you're thinking, well, Andy, I don't know. I don't really lie to myself. Guess what you've just done? You've made my point. Because you do, and the reason that we do it so often and don't even realize that we're doing it is because we're really good at it. We're really good at it. One of the reasons we're so good at it is because we don't call the lies that we tell ourselves, we don't actually call them lies. We dignify them. We call them something else. They are not lies, they are reasons. They're reasons, right? Which is reasonable. Because if you have a reason, you're being reasonable. And you don't want to be unreasonable, right? Because maybe you work with somebody, or there's somebody in your family or somebody in your friend circle who's an unreasonable person. And so you don't want to be unreasonable, right? So when we decide to do something that we know that we shouldn't do, instead of saying, I don't know why I do this, we come up with reasons. We come up with reasons. The reason I was late to work today was because of traffic. Well, was it? Well, did you get up on time? Well, no. Well, when you did get up, did you get straight to getting ready? Well, no. I had to check some emails, and then, of course, messages on social media. I kind of went down the rabbit hole. Okay, all right. Well, when you left your house, finally, did you go straight to work? Well, no. I needed my Starbucks, and okay. So are you going to stick with traffic as the reason you're late? Yep. Traffic's it. That's what we do because that is reasonable, right? And so we come up with reasons and then we believe them, which is an odd thing because we're the ones that came up with them in the first place. But we can talk ourselves into believing them. And whatever we do, we have a reason. Now, the reason that you give others and the reason that you tell yourself may not actually be the reason, right? It's just that thing that you're telling. The actual reason may be a secret that you have been keeping from yourself in order to keep you from having to face a certain truth about yourself. And it's really crazy that we do this, but we all do it. Instead of telling ourselves the truth, we make stuff up. We manufacture excuses, and then we disguise them as reasons because we want to be reasonable. But maybe, and this is where we're headed today, this is where we're taking the conversation, but maybe we should begin to call it not like it is, but maybe we should start to call it like other people see it. Because I hate to break this to you, no matter how much you've bought into your own reasons, the people around you and closest to you, they know when you're lying. They know when you're throwing out excuses for things, right? They know when you've bought into your own excuses, and they know when you're manufacturing them, right? And the reason that I know, and the reason that you know that they know, is because you can tell when other people do it to you. So what makes you think they can't tell when you're doing it to them, right? Now, this is part 3 of this series as we've been building on this idea and going week to week, the reason for my excuses. And like we've said the last few weeks, excuses are a lot like walls that we have built, but not actual real walls, paper walls. Walls that from a distance, they look, they look impenetrable. They look significant. They look like actual obstacles that can keep us from getting places. But as we get closer to those walls, as we get more honest with ourselves, we realize that many of our reasons aren't really actually reasons. They're just excuses, paper walls that we have created. And over time, our excuses become our becauses, which are the things that we fall back on and we retreat to when somebody confronts us, right? The becauses that we hide behind when somebody brings something to our attention. Well, why don't you? Well, because. Well, why do you always? Well, because. You don't even let the sentence get finished before we pull out our because, right? Why did you? Because, and when you get called out on things, it's tough. Luckily, you guys generally don't let me get away with stuff, Ruth called me out this morning. I'm trying to stretch a leg, and I'm like, oh, I can't stretch. She's like, why? I'm like, because I'm old. And she's like, that's not the reason. I'm like, thank you for paying attention, Ruth. I appreciate it. But we do, right? We always have reasons, but sometimes our because is not the actual cause. Sometimes it's an excuse masquerading as a reason. We all do this. So here's the question that we are asking in our series as we work our way through. Is it possible that you are missing out on life because you've walled yourself in? Right? Is it possible that you're living behind a paper wall that you have bought into the lie as an actual obstacle that you can't move beyond? Right? One that you're hiding behind is keeping people out, is keeping relationships out, is keeping you from taking advantage of and stepping into opportunities. Right? Is it possible that you are hiding behind self-imposed, lie-infested excuses? Right? But over time, and we mentioned this a little last week, over time, a single excuse could actually become a king in our life, a tyrant, a ruler, telling us what we can and can't do, telling us what we can and cannot say, telling us what opportunities we can take advantage of and can't. Right? And the reason that it's a ruler is because our life is not as compartmentalized as we think. Right? We think like, oh, I can tell myself this story and it can kind of control me in this one area, but that doesn't affect everything else. Right? Excusing unhealth in one area of your life brings unhealth into all areas of your life. Right? It's fluid. It all flows together. You can't keep them neatly separated. You can't compartmentalize and think, well, this is only going to affect this singular arena in my life if I'm hiding behind this wall and this excuse, right? It's not just doing that. And so as when you look, well, why did you overreact in this situation? Why did you lose your temper? Well, the reason I lost my temper is because, and we say it, and it doesn't matter because that's just one area, and it's not going to affect all of the other areas, right? But life isn't that way. Losing your temper, it begins to affect every relationship in your life, in every arena within your life. Making excuses financially, or making excuses when it comes to your health. You may think it's a single area. Everything flows together. It all affects another thing. And here's another thing that making excuses that you hide behind and trick yourself into thinking they're actual reasons. It really impacts your credibility because people know when you're full of it. They do. And for any parents, by the way, you know who really knows when you're full of it? Your kids. They're really good at picking up on that stuff, right? They're saying this and they're acting like that's true, but I don't think that's really true. Right? And so here's the problem. Perhaps within some of us, perhaps there is a single excuse that we have hidden behind for so long that it just flows out of us without us even realizing we're doing it. Right? And that thing is keeping us from moving forward, whether it be relationally or financially or in personal growth, whatever arena, it's keeping us from progressing. But is it possible that maybe it's really just an excuse you've convinced yourself is a reason? And the reason that we're spending time talking about this is because there's a direct relationship between our excuses and our ability to follow Jesus. Right? Because an excuse and Jesus cannot be king of your life at the same time. They just can't. Right? When you follow Jesus' teachings throughout the Gospels, when you follow his actions, when you follow his conversations, you find that time after time after time, Jesus was bringing light into darkness. He was exposing things that were hidden. He was constantly leading and calling people out of their darkness. But as we're going to see today, as we get into this, light shown into our dark places can be terrifying. And it can be threatening, right? It can be embarrassing when we realize and see certain things that we've worked hard to keep hidden. But it's in that moment when we realize, when the light is shown on our darkness, and it's in that moment when we're like, oh, okay, I've got these excuses that I'm using that I've convinced myself as reasons, but I'm really just afraid. Because really at the base of all of our excuses is fear. This whole time I've had all these excuses as to why I won't or why I do or why I never. But the truth is I'm afraid. I'm insecure. I'm terrified of what I might feel or discover as I move past the excuses that I've been hiding behind. And light can be terrifying, but it can also be really liberating. Right? Because lies hold us back and keep us in the dark. Have you ever seen someone around you, whether it be, somebody at work or a friend or a child or a spouse, and they're doing things in a certain way, and you look at them and you use the phraseology like, can't you see what you're doing? Can't you see the effect that you're having on the people around you? Right? Can't you see the damage that's being caused by this thing that you're doing? And if we bring it up to them, you know what? They can't see it. They can't see it. It's like they're wandering around in the darkness. And when you bring it up, since they can't see it and it's not obvious to them, they run and hide behind the excuses. But those aren't reasons, they're just excuses. But here's the thing that we don't want to admit when it comes to all of that. Is that what is true of them when they can't see it is true of us. As others are watching the excuses that we hide behind and the effect that our actions and the things that we do or don't do are having around us, right? I can't see it in me. You can't see it in you, but it's there. This is why when you follow Jesus throughout the Gospels, he presents us with a life-changing invitation. 2,000 years ago, Jesus makes this point right after he makes this over-the-top statement about himself. Here's what he said. In John chapter 8, he makes this statement: I am the light of the world. Now, who would say that? That's quite a claim, right? Who says things like this? It is no wonder when you see things like this that people who were listening to Jesus speak at the time would just maybe smirk and just shake their head and walk away. Like, this guy, light of the world. Who says that about themselves, right? But before we write him off as saying crazy things, what if that's really true? Right? What if it's really true? What if Jesus really came to lead the people of this world in every single generation out of darkness? Right? So that we would see who we really are, right? To shed light on our excuses so that we can reach our full potential that God has created us with, right? What if Jesus really is the light of the world? Then he says this: I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And Jesus is saying, look, I want to light up all of the dark places. I want to lead you past your paper walls, right? I want to expose those things that are holding you back from fully engaging and realizing your full potential, right? But it isn't enough, Jesus would say, if he was talking to us this morning, it isn't enough to just sing songs about me, right? It isn't enough to just admire me and think I was a good person. It isn't enough to just say you believe in me, right? You have to actually follow me, because Jesus would tell us, I'm taking you somewhere. I'm taking you somewhere. And it was the men and women who followed Jesus, not just admired him, not just like, oh, well, maybe he was who he said he was. Who knows? It was the people who actually followed him, did what he said. It was those group of people who turned the world upside down, who were responsible for getting the message of Jesus out of the first century, right? And when Jesus said this to his audience that was sitting around listening, there were all sorts of people in that audience. But one of the groups of people that were in the audience were the religious leaders, who were constantly just taking notes every time Jesus was talking, because they were hoping that he would say something that they'd be able to catch him in some kind of inconsistency or some kind of fallacy or some kind of incorrect statement that they'd be able to use to discredit him, right? And so they're sitting there and they're listening, and Jesus makes this statement, and they perceive a weakness in his argument. And so they're going to jump on it. Here's what it says, verse 13, it says, and the Pharisees challenged him. Here's how they challenged him. They said, here you are, appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid. In other words, like Jesus, you're claiming things about yourself. You can't claim things about yourself because there's no way to prove it. You can't just say it. You could just lie to everybody. How do we know you're saying the truth, right? Folks, this guy's going crazy. You can't just claim things. Move along. Nothing to see here, right? Well, of course, the audience doesn't just move along because there was something to see, right? They suspected something about Jesus. Later on in the conversation, he says this. If you drop down to verse 31, he says this, if you hold to my teaching, which is conditional, right? There's a conditional clause here, right? If you remain in, if you embrace, if you focus on, if you will organize your life around my teaching, if you will do what I'm teaching to you, then and only then, you are really my disciples or my learners or my followers. And if you will do what I'm telling you to do, Jesus says, then you will know the truth. Then you will be able to recognize what is true and what isn't. And when you're able to recognize truth, then you will quit making excuses. Then you will quit rationalizing. Then you'll quit resisting, right? When you have that aha moment of, oh, these reasons really are just excuses I've made up that I'm hiding behind. He says, then you will know the truth, and what will happen? The truth will, it'll set you free. Free to see yourself the way that God sees you, right? Free to see the potential that you actually hold, the potential that other people see in you. Free to see your family the way that God sees your family. Free to see God the way that God really is, right? Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And I'm not just some intangible, ethereal idea that's out there. I want to be the light of your world. I don't want you operating in darkness. And if you follow me, you will discover the truth, and the truth will set you free. And you will begin to see your excuses that you hide behind for exactly what they are. Now, here's what's amazing about this. Do you know how the audience responds to him when he says this statement? They respond by making excuses. It's really quite fascinating, right? Here's what the Pharisees and the teachers of the law said to him, trying to make sure people did not follow him. They answered him. He said, we are Abraham's descendants and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? In other words, they say, listen, there's nothing you can't set us free. There's nothing for us to be set free from, which is ridiculous on the face of it. Right? When they said this, they were literally under the rule of a Roman governor. Right? Jesus goes, hey, who's your governor? Well, Pilate. But you don't think you're slaves? Nope, not slaves, right? Okay, but are you in charge of you or is someone else in charge of you? We don't want to talk about it. Yeah, what about before that? There's the Syrians, there was the Babylonians, there was the Egyptians. It seems like you've need freed a whole lot. Right? So this whole idea of them never being under control of someone else and not needing free, it's ridiculous. But they said it anyway. Which, by the way, isn't it amazing how even still today, leaders can stand up and say things that are just ridiculous on the face of them. And we're like, okay, we just go along with it, right? But here's the thing with that. It's easy to criticize when people do that. But oftentimes we are equally as guilty, right? When I come along and I say, hey, you're a slave to your excuses, you're walled in, you may sit there and think, well, no, not me. Not me. I'm not a slave to my excuses, right? If somebody implies this of us, sit back, fold our arms, nope. Make our excuses. I'm not controlled by anybody. We're tempted to say what they did. Right? Here's how we would say, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I've never been a slave to anything. I've never been controlled by anything. What do you mean you're going to set me free? Free from what? Right? And I think Jesus would respond to us the same way that he responded to his original audience. Jesus replied, very truly I tell you. And then this is great because they brought up their national history. Oh, we've never been slaves to any nation. Jesus says, I'm not going to go with your national history. I'm going to go with your personal history. Jesus replied, very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. They're probably like, oh, wait, what? What are we talking about sin for now? Like, what, Jesus? And what he's saying is this. He's saying, do you ever do what you know you ought not do? Well, I mean, yes. Sure, yeah. And then do you regret doing that thing that you did? Well, yes, of course I regret doing the thing I shouldn't do. Yeah. And do you ever get on the other side of it and be like, I can't believe I did that? Well, I mean, sure, sure, there's things, yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, who made you do that thing? Did you ever repeat that thing? Well, yes. Did you ever repeat it again? Well, I mean, yes. Well, what's wrong with you? Sounds like you're a slave. Sounds like you're being controlled. Well, I mean, yeah, no, there's that, but you know what, Jesus, come on, right? Jesus is like, no, that's my point. That is my point. You have deceived yourself into thinking you are far more free than you really are because you've hidden behind your excuses. But Jesus would say, I am the light of the world, and I'm inviting you, I won't force you, but I am inviting you to a better way of living, right? And then after a couple of conversations there further in the passage about his unique relationship with God the Father, Jesus concludes like this, and he's talking about himself. He's basically like, look, if you follow me, right, if you embrace my teaching, if you allow me to set you free. He says this, so if the Son sets you free, if you allow me to light up the lies in your life that you are hiding behind, you will be free indeed. Actually free. Free to recognize the false walls that you've built around yourself. Free to move forward in life. The life that God intends for us to live. Because following Jesus and the way that he wants us to live and the direction that he's leading us, it'll make your life better. Following Jesus will make you better at doing life because he's the light of the world and he has come to light up our personal darkness. And the invitation to you today, regardless of where you are on the spiritual spectrum and where you're at in your journey, is would you lean in and choose to really follow Jesus? That is, allow him to illuminate the darkness where you keep the things hidden that you don't want to face. The things that you hide behind because it's safer and you don't have to confront things about yourself that you want to be avoiding. Right? Would you lean in and do that? Because if you do that, Jesus will lead you into the freedom to acknowledge the fear and the anxiety that is at the root of every single one of your excuses. Right? He'll lead you into the freedom to see yourself in what those around you can see, what they wish you would see about yourself. And most importantly, you and I will be free to engage. But here's the problem. The problem is that our excuses excuse us from engaging with other people. And our excuses excuse us many times from loving other people. Right now, let me give you an example that might help you realize how true that is. If you've been in a situation where somebody has harmed or hurt you, right? Isn't it true that that person who hurt you or mistreated you or lied to you or left you or abandoned you, isn't it true that if you were to ask them, they have a reason for what they did? Yeah. They would give you the reasons. And probably if we were to look at those reasons and begin to actually dissect them, every one of them is probably a manufactured excuse for why they did what they did. And the reason that so many people, when they've hurt you like that, never come clean, right? And never apologize and never take ownership is because they couldn't see that they were hiding behind the excuses that they created and were passing off as actual reasons. So then here's my question. If that's how the person who damaged you or hurt you or abandoned you, if that's how they were, do you want to be like that? Do you want to be like that to other people around you, right? Do you want there to be people in the world who were hurt by you, and then when it comes up, you defend it because you can't recognize that what you've convinced yourself is a reason is really just an excuse? Do you want to behave in such a way that it keeps others locked out because you're never able to reconcile because you won't do the work to recognize the lies you've convinced yourself of? Listen, if you don't have the ability in a situation to see that you were wrong, you are in danger of being wrong your entire life, which means you could excuse your entire life away, right? You can excuse away that bad habit that you just won't get rid of. You can excuse away your health. You can excuse away your family. You can excuse away your peace. You can excuse away your faith. Jesus says, there's a better way, and I'm it, right? I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And this begins with an invitation to say, Jesus, help me take an honest look at myself. Shine your light in the darkness that I have created inside of me. And I promise you, two things. One, it'll be terrifying. But two, it'll be worth it because you will see the truth, and the truth will set you free. Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you just for the gift that you have given us in the record we have of the life of Christ and the things that he talked about and placed importance on and was constantly drawing us back to. And Lord, this is one of the most important things. As he calls us out of the darkness that we have created with the lies and the excuses that we've told ourselves, that we've convinced ourselves are true. And there are so many people who live their entire life trapped behind walls that aren't even real, that they have created in their own mind and convinced themselves are actual obstacles. God, we cannot be the best version of ourselves if we are hiding behind excuses that we've convinced ourselves are reasons. So this week, Lord, I pray that you begin to shine the uncomfortable light when we begin to hide behind the excuses we've created. God, help us to recognize them and then give us the courage to do the work necessary to be able to step out from behind those lies and be able to step into what you have for us. Lord, I thank you for your mercy and for your grace. In your name, amen. Amen. Thank you so much for being out. Look forward to next week as we're going to wrap up this series, The Reasons for My Excuses.